Hello and welcome to another Overlord lore video, and thanks to my Patreons for supporting this channel. And with that said, let's take a look at, or rather revisit, Yuri Alpha, the vice leader of the Pleiades Six Star formation. And we will start with her background and her design first. Yuri's general character design resembles that of a French maid, including her hairstyle. Her glasses are used to emphasize her intellect, and were likely chosen by Yamaiko, her creatress, because of her own profession as a teacher. Yuri's choker, while undoubtedly fairly fashionable, has also a practical use. It covers up the scar that separates her head from her body, and it also serves as a tool to permanently reattach her head to it. And it is apparently strong enough to hold up during what was, at least from the foe's point of view, a life and death battle. So even in the new world, duct tape really fixes everything. But the reason why it needs fixing and fixation in the first place is that Yuri Alpha is not only an undead, but also a Dullahan, a headless or sometimes beheaded unliving corpse. And with that said, let's dive into the relationship between creatress and created. Now obviously Yuri Alpha, who was created by Yamaiko, would serve her above anybody else, including Ein Solgaun. But since she isn't around anymore, Eins is de facto her absolute superior. Fun fact, if other supreme beings were present, not even Albedo, the second highest in command, could order Yuri to attack them, which became obvious since she didn't attack the imitation of Tabula Smaragdina, created and impersonated by Pandora's actor. As a creation of Yamaiko, her creatress personality apparently also imprinted on Yuri. In the old world, Yamaiko was a hard-working teacher, an extremely reliable, calm, caring, and polite person, and she oftentimes acted as a mediator and as an arbiter if differences between other members occurred. Therefore, and for her kind and gentle attitude, she was well liked and respected by the other guild members. Similar to her creatress Yamaiko, who also had a gifted little sister, Yuri Alpha has Oriole Omega, the youngest of the Pleiades, the only of them that had reached level 100. The overseer of the teleportation network, and the guardian of the true staff of Ein Solgaun, hidden in her cherry blossom sanctuary on the 8th floor. Yuri Alpha herself is usually calm, collected, friendly, and polite. She's also called Big Sis by every other Pleiades, placing further emphasis on her status as a leader and commander. But she's also referred to as Big Sis by the Homunculi mates, which again pronounces her status as a figure who holds a certain amount of authority. All of this mirrors Yamaiko's own social status within the guild. Additionally, since Yamaiko was a bit of a perfectionist, Yuri had always something in the back of her head that needed to be done or could be improved upon. So Yuri Alpha, even though she's a Dullahan, a headless undead, with the same emotional suppression as Eins, could never completely relax. Therefore, it seems that this nagging feeling is seemingly weak enough to not trigger her emotional suppressor. Furthermore, Yuri Alpha also inherited Yamaiko's professional views. Because her creatress was a teacher, Yuri Alpha wants to teach as well. And therefore she, during the opening of the question box, pronounced her wish for the establishment of an education system to scout for talented people as a way of strengthening the Sorcerer Kingdom and the Great Tomb of Nazarick. Yuri Alpha also got an opportunity to teach Lupus Regina a lesson, and perhaps teaching her is the equivalent of teaching a whole class of children. But despite her calm nature, Yamaiko also tended to act before she thought things through in Yggdrasil, maybe as an outlet from the many responsibilities as a teacher. And this attitude seems to be present in Yuri's character build, a quick and agile melee specialist. Which brings us to another very obvious similarity between Yamaiko and Yuri Alpha, their weapons. Yamaiko, in addition to wielding a pink power fist which Ein Solgaun used to smack Shaltir through his desert of death he created, is also armed with paired weighted gauntlets. Now Yamaiko is a Nephilim, a giant, and as such, weighted blunt weapons are an excellent way to enhance already present abilities and the presumed strength that comes with being big, even though Yamaiko was more of a healer than a damage dealer. Yuri Alpha, like her creators, also relies on augmenting her punching power, but in the Pleiades case with paired spiked gauntlets. The spikes, as seen in the third novel during the brief standoff with Pandora's actor, came out after Yuri hits her fist together. Similar to Yamaiko, the additional weight is there to increase the power behind Yuri's strikes, but instead of creating a knockback effect, the spikes focus all of the kinetic energy into a very small area. Since Yamaiko focused more on endurance and overall healing spells, this boost was likely needed to hold her own during direct confrontations, and in order to pose a threat, while her fierce fist could knock back targets and thereby buy the time necessary to use her regeneration and healing magic to the greatest effect possible. Fun fact, Yamaiko, like Ainz, is also capable of using Wish upon a star, but in contrast to Ainz, she received the incredible rare ring that grants 3 free uses of this magic during her first try, while Ainz had spent quite the amount of money on in-game gambling. Anyway, back to topic. In spite of her very heavy looking weapon, Yuri is a fairly light and agile fighter rather than a durable tank, with her main stats being HP, attack and agility. And fun fact, in the original myth, the Dullahan used to be a rider and not just a headless undead, and as such, he was fairly agile as well. And Yuri's armor, while still consisting of Yggdrasil material, which is far superior to mere New World cloth, is, in accordance with her character build, lighter and more flexible than, let's say, that of Naber al-Gammar, but it also is lacking some protective layers, as seen here. Yuri Alpha's skillset is focused on delivering brutal physical damaging strikes against single targets, while relying on her agility to avoid attacks and close the distance between herself and the enemy quickly. But in contrast to some sword-swinging dark hero, Yuri Alpha is actually adept at martial arts, demonstrating her use of Fa Jing, a Chinese martial arts technique that uses the whole body to generate physical energy, which is then released in a single explosive strike during the battle with Evil Eye, where Yuri had shattered Evil Eye's crystal wall, with very little in the way of actual movement. This also might help to illustrate what Yuri Alpha could do if she combines Fa Jing with her speed and the additional weight and focus her spiked gauntlets provide. Additionally, Yuri Alpha has the ability to use Qigong, a set of Chinese posture, breath, and focus techniques to heal herself and her allies. With herself being undead, the healing effect seems to be either related to a fixed numerical amount of restored health or to be of the neutral element, since the undead Yuri would take damage from the life energy present in normal healing magic. The ability to heal herself and her allies, while similarly suffering from a very limited amount of MP, is also reminiscent of Yamaiko. Furthermore, Yuri Alpha has the ability to boost her attack and defense power via the activation of skills, and Yuri's meager mana pool seems to be almost exclusively reserved for this kind of support, since she has no means of magical attack. Furthermore, Yuri has the ability to boost her attack and defense power, for example through the activation of Armament Enhancement or Iron Skin. To round her character build up, she as an undead has immunities against immobilization, silence, blinding, and confusion, and her undead nature also renders her immune to any negative energy effects, and it also replenishes her health through direct negative damage. But like they are to Ainz, the holy and the fire element would be deadly weaknesses to her. Personality-wise, Yuri herself, despite her somewhat collected and strict attitude, her undead nature, and the spikes of doom on her wrists, is very benevolent, even to those outside of Nazarick. The same benevolence is also the reason Yuri gets somewhat irritated by her more sadistic sisters. While it wasn't present in the anime, Yuri got quite a bit irritated by Lupus Regina, as she fantasized about how nice it would be if Khan Village would be destroyed. She also used this opportunity to compare Lupus Regina to Solution Epsilon, who also is far away from any benevolence. Unless you are into war. With a karma value of positive 150, Yuri Alpha is considered to be one of the 2 safe Pleiades, though Oriole Omega remains an enigma to this very day, so the numbers might change. And thus it was no coincidence that both she and Shizu Delta, the other battlemate with clear positive karma, kept Evil Eye busy while Momon was showing off his skills against Yaldabaoth, and the other Pleiades had a little chat. This was far more important than it seems at first glance, considering that mere hours before this battle commenced, Evil Eye nearly killed Entoma. Considering their karma value, Solution Epsilon, Naber al-Gammar, and especially Entoma and Lupus Regina Beta might have lost their cool and simply killed Evil Eye in a moment of rage. And even with their good alignment, both Shizu Delta and Yuri Alpha are additionally emotionally inhibited. Shizu seems to be composed all of the time, due to her nature as an automatron, and her somewhat militaristic background and design might also help her to stay in command of her emotions, while Yuri is, as mentioned before, subject to the same undead emotional suppression as Ainz. As a Dullahan she also is, like many other undead, practically immune to physical pain and totally immune to fatigue, which makes her well suited for close quarter combat, because she will not be easily distracted by emotions and problematic conditions. And while Antoma and Yuri are both level 51 builds, this Dullahan was able to easily fight off Evil Eye and dominate the engagement. While it undoubtedly had helped that she received cover and suppression fire from Shizu Delta, which hindered Evil Eye from taking the fight into the air or simply staying out of range. This for the most time just forced the battle between the two. Since Evil Eye's negative energy attacks are worthless against Yuri, Crystal presumably shatters fairly easily under her brutal punches, and Verminbane is not a deadly weakness to her, but presumably close to useless, or at least very ineffective. Since undead beings shouldn't be affected by poison, the Vampire Princess, an undead herself, was left without a clear strategy to counter Yuri, who is just her equivalent power-wise. But again, having Shizu Delta open fire on Evil Eye if she tries to disengage didn't help the vampire either. Nonetheless, it shows that mere levels and stats are not the sole indicator whether or not somebody will win a battle, or lose it decisively. It all depends to a great degree on individual strength and weaknesses, and in another sense similar to Einzulgaun himself, who was just a somewhat normal human before being transported. Yuri's undead nature enables her to follow through any violent deeds without giving in to compassion or the impulse to help others. This is especially important because, as mentioned, her creatress oftentimes has acted before she thought things through, earning her the byname of Muscle Brain. So not only might Yuri's fast, agile build be inspired by this aspect of Yamaiko's character, without the emotional suppression being present, Yuri, similar to Sebas, might have, if not outright ignored, then at the very least altered orders, so that she might be able to help others. And if Yamaiko's act first, think later attitude had manifested itself in the battle against Evil Eye, Yuri might have punched first and then asked questions later. Curiously enough, rash, thoughtless actions are something Yuri seems to be very annoyed of. If, for example, Lupus Regina Beta behaves in such a way, which became quite apparent as she hit her after being a bit obnoxious after having just been scolded by Ainz during the 8th book. So Yuri scolding Lupus Regina per gauntlet might reflect part of Yamaiko's character, who, after rushing in without thinking, might have scolded herself for doing something incredible headless. Rough, sisterly headpats aside, the Pleiades, despite their different species and karma values, are still viewing themselves as sisters, and thus are fairly close and on friendly terms with another. But again, with Big Sis Yuri being the respected older sister in charge, and making Lupus Regina behave, for example, during the talk with the villagers of Karn, Yuri perhaps could be used to keep the other Pleiades, and more importantly, their sadistic nature in check when around. Lastly, after we have looked into Yuri's relationship with her sisters, okay, this sounds plain wrong. We have to dive into her relationship with Shaltir, which doesn't sound very right either. You see, Shaltir has a fetish for undead girls, and for girls with glasses, which makes her even more inclined to try her luck with the Dullahan. Additionally, Shaltir, like her creator, might be better described by the few fetishes she doesn't have than the other way around. But regardless if this is true or not, due to Shaltir's pursuit, Yuri Alpha tries to avoid the undead vampire, which, if we take her treatment of her 2 vampire brides into account, is probably the best course of action. And while Ainz has no levels in Overlord Wise Man, he most certainly is a wise man by asking a very important question about the Bloody Valkyrie. And while we're at this delicate topic, it wouldn't be surprising if the 3 female members of Nazarick, Yamaiko among them, had built some secret Fuyoshi paradise with avatars they find attractive. And with that said, thank you very much for watching. And special thanks to Al Capone, Andy, Angel of Death, Bad Guy E, Boyzilla, Diabetic Centaur, Dystopia, Fady Skatus, Gigafight, Hector Moreno, Hoss, Jason, Chromius, Large Z, Lord Touch Me, Lord Albert Elaine Oddle, Matt, Marcos, Mr. Shoes, Minnow 13, Mirtis, Primus 11, Sasuga Einsama, Sebastian, Serge, Sparkly Unicorn, and Vash Hawkeye. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, over and out.